You know, we've been going through Hebrews for the past 4 weeks, but this seemed to be appropriate at this time because it just deals with that subject of why Christ was that fitting high priest for us. Many people might not know this, but Ruth is in that lineage of Christ. Ruth is going to go on to marry Boaz and be the grandmother to Jesse and the great-grandmother to David. So this image that she projects of faith here, a faith that has hope, when, as Naomi put it, she had no hope. She had no hope of being able to get another husband at her age in life. She was likely well past childbearing years as well. But her daughters-in-law had been witness to her life lived well. They had seen what a relationship with the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob meant. And they saw something very valuable there. They saw something that was important and had become a priority for them. But as we see throughout the Bible, this repetition of threes comes up. When they heard that there was food to be had because they were going through a drought, they were going through a time of famine in the land where they were living, Naomi said, "We're going to go back to my homeland." She had heard that there had been a good crop there, that there had been a set of supplies there. Much like what we are going through now, we have to look and scrounge and hunt for the supplies that we need to get by. And we go where they are at. But back in this day and this time, she was having to leave everything that they owned in the world behind. They didn't have the means to transport their goods and what they owned back in the land that they were dwelling in. They had to just drop and go with what they could carry on their backs. And Naomi knew that that meant not a good prospect. Because these two daughters-in-law had already been married and had husbands, there wasn't a real chance for them to be able to get a new husband in their land that they were going to. But because of their culture, where they were from, she knew that they could probably be accepted, that they could go back home to their houses, to their families, and likely be able to continue in a life that would be prosperous for them. She was trying to look out for their intentions, to provide for them, even though she knew she couldn't even have a chance to provide for herself. But they resisted after that first time she asked them to leave her. They had strength to say, "No, we're going to keep going with you." But she pleaded the more earnestly with them. She laid it out in terms that they could understand, in a way of showing how desperate the situation was. That even if she could have them 2 new sons, would they wait the 15 to 18 years that it would take for them to be able to provide and take care of them? No. They couldn't. And one of the daughters had her courage, had her faith, had her strength shaken. And so she said goodbye and she went back. But Naomi saw that Ruth was still there with her. She saw that Ruth was still sticking by her side, even though she had told her in plain terms, "Take care of yourself. Go back home. Don't worry about me." You know, we've got so many people that are still in that kind of mindset today. Today we want to say they're stubborn. They try to do more than they can handle at times. They try to take on more burdens than they can bear. But when we have the example that Naomi set for Ruth, then we find that those lessons don't go unnoticed. They get taken to heart. They get put into practice in the next generation. The lives that we live here and now set the tone for what the next generation is going to follow. Making Christ a priority in our lives. Making a relationship with Him more than a couple of minutes here and there or an hour on a Sunday. But spending time in His presence throughout our weeks. Taking time to appreciate all the good things that He provides for us all around us. I've got a lot of cousins and all that love to go hunting, and I love to go fishing, but I haven't picked up hunting. But being out there in nature and seeing what all God has created is yet another way that points you back to God. Paul said so much. He said that you could just look at nature and know that there's a God. But if you know that, then you have to go out and search Him out and find more out about Him. And that's what Ruth did with Naomi. She looked at the way that Naomi knew God. I said, I want to find that for myself. I want to have that kind of relationship, that kind of knowledge. Paul said that many people are out there spreading the gospel out of false motives. But nevertheless, he rejoiced because they were spreading the gospel. They were speaking the words, they were speaking the message. And even though their heart wasn't in it, it was still accomplishing that which it was set for. Today's day and age, though, we have people who are changing the gospel, changing the message, because they don't know the messenger. But when you have the authentic here, as Naomi knew the messenger, it gets passed on. It gets seeded into that heart where it can grow. And Ruth treasures that. She knows that even though she doesn't have hope, that she has faith. That the God who's accomplished the mighty acts He had in the past for this family, for this people, can still act and provide for her because of faith. And she makes this covenant. It's a kind of treaty that the Old Testament law is based on. A commitment to be a part of this person's household, a part of their family, one that would support and defend and protect at even the own cost of their own life for the remainder of their natural life. That's the kind of commitment that Christ says we're to have. When He tried to go out and gather disciples, and they all started making excuses. I've got to go see about this field that I purchased. I've got these animals that I bought over here, and I've got to go look at them, make sure they're good stock. I've got to take care of my father and bury him. Christ said, the time is now. I'm calling you today. I'm calling you to be my follower and to surrender today. Not at some point in the future. Not when the time is convenient and right for you, because you don't know what tomorrow holds. The rich man said, I'm going to build some big barns because I've got so much overflowing that I need more room to store it. What he's saying is I need more room to hoard it. He didn't recognize, as we do, that what God has provided, we're meant to give back to Him. We're meant to return in kind as He has given to us. Because as I said earlier, His name means love. He is full of love. And that's what He asks from us, is to love Him. To know Him to the fullest extent. To learn from Him. To seek Him for wisdom. To seek Him for power. To seek Him for what gives us life. Paul said that about the Scripture. That this word that we have, this testimony that tells us how to live a life of faith, that it is life-giving, that it is food for those that are being saved. But at the same time, it's the stench of death to those that are lost, to those that don't appreciate and understand what it's trying to show them in life. Even the young scribe, the young Pharisee that came to Christ and asked Him what the greatest commandment was. And Christ in turn asked him, well, how do you see it? And the Pharisee replied, well, to love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your might, and all your strength, and to love your neighbor as yourself. Christ looked at him and said, you're not far off from the kingdom of God. He knew the right thing, but he wasn't sure about how to apply it. Christ had told the Pharisees another time to tell them what it meant to say that I desire mercy and not sacrifice. Mercy is that kind of love that treats others as we treat ourselves, that loves God first and foremost, that knows His Spirit is one that doesn't seek to do us harm, but that seeks to provide us strength for our lives. Because harm is going to be inflicted upon us because of sin being in the world. He knows that. And He wants to help us. But He cannot force Himself upon us. Instead, He gives us that option. He gives us that opportunity to make that choice for Him. And it's a choice we have to keep making. Every day that we get up and start again, we have that same choice in front of us. Am I going to live today for God? Or am I going to live it for myself? Which doesn't mean you can't go out and enjoy life. You're meant to go out and enjoy life. You're meant to go out and experience this world, but in a way that's pleasing unto Him. In a way that shows that care and compassion that He has for us, for others. But too often this world gets concerned with itself. You have to look no further than any restaurant after Sunday service. And we see how those who are there to serve us, fixing the meals that we don't want to fix, get treated. Going to the grocery stores and the ones that still carry out your bags for you. How many give a word of thanks, our token of appreciation? But this kind of love that's being described here, it gives back. Ruth had benefited from those years of being in relationship with Naomi and her family. She had found that pearl of great value that Christ described in his parables. And she knew she couldn't let that go. No matter what struggle she would have to go through, no matter how hard the journey ahead was going to be, she knew it wasn't that important. And she became a witness of faith that was determined to be in service, determined to take care of this woman of faith that had shown her the way. And that's what we do today. We see to the needs of those who have been in our churches, who have been that witness, who have been that living that example for us. And we reach out to them when they're in times of hurt and struggle. We provide a caring ear to listen when they need it. And I don't believe that anyone has no one to call upon anymore. Because there is faith and there is love in the church. And we know what it is because we've seen it in practice. And we have to practice it ourselves and pass that on to the next generation. Show people how we can love even when there's other things that separate us. We've had so much struggle in this country that last night as we were at that trunk or treat, it was such a joy to see that there was a policeman out there. And this kid in his costume came up and he was just so proud that he took a picture with that officer in his uniform. That's what I want to see more of. That kind of relationship, that kind of hand-in-hand working with one another. Teaching these people that have a fear in their heart, that they don't need to have fear. That very same officer pulled me over later when I was coming back from my mom's house just to tell me I had a broken tail light, or a blown out tail light. And he was just as professional as could be. And it's because I know how to interact with them. I know how to show respect and to authority. But that's because I was raised that way. When we are raised with Christian values, with Christian principles, to learn what the scriptures mean and why they're important for our lives, that takes root. But the same is true if you don't share those values, if you don't share those principles. It also has an effect. But when God is speaking to us, and I believe He is speaking today just as much as He did in this time, telling us where we need to be, how we need to be involved, how we need to be reaching out, because we've been reached out to. We've been given His love. We've been given His mercy. We've been given His grace. And now we need to let Him lead us and let it flow from us out into this world around us. Being the best witness for Christ that we can be at all points in our life. There's never a time when any of us can stop working for the kingdom. Even when our backs are given out, when our bodies are old and frail, our words, our actions, our time can show that faith is still alive in us because we share it with others, because we let them into our lives. Despite what keeps us apart, despite our differences, even despite disagreements. There's many people I don't agree with that I still love. And I still pray for them. I'm still concerned about them. But I might not like where their lives are headed. I might not like the decisions that they make for themselves. But I don't ever stop loving them. Because I know that I made decisions in my life that God didn't like. And He never stopped loving me. This morning we're going to conclude with page 338, Where He Leads Me.
We would like to take this time to invite you to learn more about our churches by visiting us at calvarycharge.com or by following us on Facebook at Calvary Bethel Centennial. Remember that we are alive together in worship. As Ephesians 2:4-5 says, "But because of His great love for us, God, who is rich in mercy, made us alive with Christ even when we were dead in transgressions. It is by grace you have been saved."